You have found the Open Eclectic Podcast, where Nate and Josh talk about everything from mobile games to books to pet peeves to cars to toys. Our interests run eclectic and we're open to more. Welcome to the Open Eclectic. Welcome to another exciting episode of the Open Eclectic. As per usual, I'm Josh.
I'm Nate.
And we've decided this is going to kick off Season 2 of the Open Eclectic.
Yep.
How long are the seasons, you ask? That's a surprise.
Well, I mean, I can tell you how long the first season was. We just kind of decided to make this the beginning of Season 2. I was kind of thinking, I was like, because as we upload episodes to, Podbean, plug for a sponsor. I mean, just in case. Whatever. Anyway, we use Podbean to upload our podcast. So I just, when you're uploading, it asks you to enter the information for it. So it's always like, what season, what episode, and I'm like, just kind of go the auto incrementing thing, and I'm like, oh, we're still on Season 1, and this is, we got a lot of episodes, 17, to be exact.
We're making this up as we go,
right?
And,
we never sat down and plotted out okay, so when we get to episode 17, we're going to flip it over to Season 2, and it's going to be twice as awesome as the first season.
And we kind of had an accidental hiatus a little bit.
Yeah.
Our lives my summer was way busier than I had planned, and anyway.
So we haven't released an episode since August 3rd, which was Top Gun Maverick, right?
Yeah.
That tracks as the last one we did, right?
Yeah, and I think what a great way to end Season 1.
Yeah, true. We didn't know it at the time, but that was the end of Season 1.
Yeah.
That was awesome.
Absolutely. I think
maybe we should make that a thing. Whenever we'd be a little more intentional about figuring out when we're going to end it, and then we're like, okay, we're gonna go to a movie, and then so the next episode, the final episode of the season, is going to be a movie review.
Okay, it could be.
I mean,
or just something more.
It doesn't have to be. I mean, this, I'm not setting any rigid requirements for this, but
it's open and eclectic.
That's right.
Heavily media based for sure, but I don't mind.
So yeah. So I think I've said and so 50 billion times already.
That's all right.
Do we want to look at any? Do we want to mention any of the statistics? I don't know.
Nah.
Well, so don't do that. Okay. Nah. Anyway, all you got to know. 17 episodes of Season 1. It started July 10th, 2021 was our first upload. The pilot episode, and the last one for Season 1 is August 3rd, 2022.
Oh, all right. Yeah.
So I was just kind of looking at that.
Feels appropriate.
Yeah, I think that's what I was thinking when I uploaded this last episode. I was like, you know what? I think we've got a season's worth of work here. It's been, over a year-ish. So let's just flip it over to 2. So that's what we did.
Yeah.
That's what it's going to be. It's going to be Season 2.
Absolutely. Makes sense. And if anybody picked up on what I was laying down on our Instagram post, I did allude to having some guests this week. Unfortunately, one of them was attacked by Nazgul.
Yes, it was very unfortunate.
Yes, and the other one fell into her cups at the Prancing Pony.
Yeah.
That's what we're going to say. That sounds exciting.
That's right. So, the Nazgul. So, is he dead, or is he just cursed with a like Frodo? I guess.
He was attacked by the Nazgul. We'll see if he's injured.
Okay.
We'll see.
Maybe we bring that back. And then,
I'm sure we'll have opportunity. We've got good stuff.
And then the Prancing Pony. She just got to sleep it off. She'll be fine.
She'll be fine.
Just couldn't make it tonight. Well,
so I guess the retitle is just the two podcasters.
That's right,
and that's of course an alluding to Season 2, the two of us, and Lord of the Rings.
Yes,
the Two Towers.
So
because
what could we be referring to now?
I don't know. Actually, I do know. I prepared.
I did too.
That's right. We watched. We decided to review episode 1 of Rings of Power. I actually wasn't going to watch this at all.
Really? You weren't? You decided you just weren't going to watch it at all?
Yeah, I made that decision.
Did we talk about that on the podcast?
It's possible.
It's been so long.
Yeah, because we heard about it like a while ago.
Yeah, I mean it's
you know,
I do remember we did talk about it.
Yeah.
It's been in the works obviously for a long time. And
sure.
it's Amazon, so they
Yeah.
spent bajillions of ducats on it. So but yeah, so we actually it was it Alexa's idea?
Yeah, Superfan, Open Eclectic Superfan Alexa was like, when are you guys going to talk about this? And I was like, I wasn't going to watch it.
We're not
and she
going
was like,
to.
maybe you should.
And then we're like,
I was like,
we should have a
okay.
watch party.
Yeah.
And we didn't actually do that, but
Yeah, we
we
talked
all
about
watched it separately and we decided we were going to talk about it. So
Yeah. So we were going to have her and another friend on to talk about another Lord of the Rings fan, big Lord of the Rings fan.
Mm-hmm.
To kind of talk about it a little bit. A lot of controversy surrounding Rings of Power. It seems like most disliked video on YouTube, and then YouTube shut down the like count and dislike count kind of a thing. I mean, there's all kinds of weird stuff swirling around about it. And I just, those weren't the reasons why I wasn't going to watch it. I want to be clear about that. I wasn't going to watch it because, to me, like, we saw Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings movies, right? I got the extended editions on DVD. I bought them day one, like the giant box sets, and just blew me away. And like the more I always like learn about them, the cooler they get for me. And then I tried to watch the Hobbit movies. One day I'll finish those. Hasn't been yet. I watched the first two in the theater, and when the third one rolled around, I just never could get around to it. But for me, it's just like a complete thing. It was like a great adaptation, and I didn't need anything else. I don't care. I just didn't care. They were like, yeah, this is going to be a prequel to Lord of the Rings set, I forget how many years before, and I was just like, cool. I hope you guys like that. I don't care.
Yeah, like when I first heard of it, I was like, I was a little skeptical, I think, but that's probably just because, the whole internet was like, nah, yeah, whatever. As it seems like everything that's coming out and it's got hype or whatever, it's got controversy anyway. So I wasn't really like paying a whole lot of attention to it as it was coming out. I just kind of heard like, oh, Amazon's doing this, it's supposed to come out, 2022, okay. I watched like the teaser. I think it was the title reveal. It was just like a big time teaser where they just revealed the title of the show.
Okay. I did not watch.
That's all I watched.
Anything. Not the title reveal, not a trailer, nothing. They were like, we're doing this. And I went, no.
No, I'm with you, man. Because I was just like, yeah. I follow a couple like Lord of the Rings or Tolkien subs on Reddit. And obviously they were talking about it. I mean, how can you not talk about it just because it's such a big thing? So I mean, I saw posts and people's opinions or like links to articles and saw some pictures from the set and everything but I wasn't like super excited about it. But as it was getting closer, I was kind of like, you know what? Maybe I will. And then Alexa like kind of brought it up, and I'm like, man, I bet, we're like, we're all like, yeah, that'd be cool to talk about on the show. So then I was kind of getting excited, and I'm like, I love Lord of the Rings. I'm not considering myself like the biggest, like a big, like super fan, but I do appreciate them. I read the book. I should read it again, but it took me like 15 years to read the whole thing.
You really did.
I did read The Hobbit, however.
Yeah.
Really like that.
Ooh, so fun thing for me. Which version of The Hobbit did you read? And here's how you know. How, in the book, did the riddles in the dark go? It's between Bilbo and Gollum.
See, Josh,
do you remember?
Fan than me. I don't remember.
This is something I learned recently, actually.
It's probably been about 10 years since I actually read it. So I started reading it. I was reading my dad's old copy that he had.
So you might have an original.
Well, this was back when I was like in middle school.
Yeah.
So he had that at home. So I started reading that. and I remember even like kind of talking to him about it a little bit. But I didn't actually I don't think I finished it then, and so I didn't actually pick it up again until, like I said, like 10 years ago. And the one that I read 10 years ago, I believe, was just like a Kindle, like a library loan. So
Okay.
It was probably a fairly recent version, I guess.
So the difference is,
Please.
when the Hobbit originally came out, Bilbo, and so I read the original as a kid, and then didn't realize, and I always assumed that this was like a Mandela effect, that I was just misremembering how this part went.
Berenstain Bears.
Yeah, or Nelson Mandela dying. I mean, we could go on.
Yeah.
And I remembered Bilbo and Gollum ending amicably. Like, they weren't blood feuding. Gollum wasn't happy, but, you know, he was like, well, a deal's a deal, precious, let's do this.
You win.
You know, and it was fine. And he shows him the way out. And that's how it originally was. And then when Tolkien came out with The Lord of the Rings, he realized that he had painted Gollum as a bad guy who was like obsessed with the ring and had to have it back. And so he had to rewrite a chapter in the original Hobbit. And so now if you buy The Hobbit, they end poorly, and Bilbo like escapes Gollum. And so I reread.
That's how they painted in in Lord of the Rings,
yeah.
Right? And I know. The movie, you know, we're talking about that. Wow, I didn't know that. Now I'm guessing that the what I read, you know, the Kindle version was probably like you said. I mean, because it's Kindle version, so it's probably
almost certainly that was the edited version, I guess.
Right.
Which is fine. Like that's.
I wonder if my dad still has his old copy, and we should check that. Because
That'd be
would have
fun.
been from probably would have been from the 70s.
Yeah, and I don't know all the details of like the publication and the timeline and stuff. I just always remember reading that part and like when on my rereads, I was always like, this is weird. I just don't remember this, you know. But I actually reread The Hobbit this year.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, I got a really cool little like leather-bound set where they're each volume. So The Hobbit's his own leather volume, and then Fellowship, Two Towers, Return of the King are all their own leather-bound volumes, very travel size.
Mini leather-bound books.
Yes, many leather-bound books. They smell wonderful, by the way.
Yeah, I was just thinking, like, okay, so my dad's, if his version were to come out in the 70s, I mean, still, when did Tolkien write Lord of the Rings?
The Hobbit came out as immortalized by the words of the Winter Soldier, like 1939.
Okay.
I think. Something like that. I could be wrong.
So he probably, obviously so you said he rewrote the passage in The Hobbit.
It was after.
Shortly after Lord of the Rings was published then? Or?
Somewhere around there. I'm a little fuzzy on some of the dates.
Okay. I'm sure we could.
It's kind of. Anyway, I just thought, I learned that earlier this year. There's a book, there's a bookseller I follow on TikTok. I can't remember his name, his account name. Anyway, so he talks about rare books, and he's got all kinds of weird things, and he like one time, for example, he was showing off a Bible in the video. He was like, I don't usually show off Bibles because they're kind of run of the mill, right? Apparently in the book world, like they're even like antique ones are not very special per se. And he was like, what's cool to me in this one is it is C.S. Lewis's Bible.
Oh.
And so it has like notes that he's written and stuff in it.
Now, see, that would be pretty sweet.
Yeah. And so he was like, this is it's part of my personal collection that's on display here. And anyway, it's a cool account. If I can find it out, we'll link it in the notes or whatever.
So, yeah.
So that was my mindset going into this, though. I just kind of didn't care. And
so, and I kind of feel like that's a really great way to go. Not like being like, I don't care about this, but I mean, not like having any expectations or having any like not being super hyped about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or kind of having a preconceived like just dislike or hatred of it or whatever, just because you're like it's gonna suck.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I went into it too. I'm like, you know what? I'm like, I don't care. I'm like, I'm not. if it's awesome, it's awesome. If it's not great, whatever. I'm sure it'll have, some entertainment value to it. I'm not going to get worked up about it. I don't care. I'm not. Yeah, I don't care that much. So I'm just going to go into it and watch it. And so should we dive into what we thought?
So how far in did you get? Because originally we were just going to cover episode 1.
Yes.
But
I watched the first 2. I think I might have started 3.
I think I'm 3 episodes in. I think I'm finished with 3 episodes.
Okay. I did at least 2.
Okay.
I wouldn't confidently say I watched 3.
We'll try and rein it into the first 2 episodes then, but you know how it goes.
I only took notes on the first episode.
Spoilers abound.
Yeah, so spoiler alert if you haven't watched any of this show or the first episode or 2.
Maybe check it out if you want to.
Check it out and come back.
So I guess on the cold rating, like first episode, how do you feel so far? How many out of the, I don't know, how many rings of power are there?
There are 9.
Is there?
9.
Well, no, because there's 9.
9 rings for, what's that?
I know, that's what I was trying to think of.
Mortal men and...
Well, so let's count. There's 3 rings for the elves. Okay. I remember that.
Right.
And there was the 1 ring.
Okay.
Right. So that's 4. And then...
Why don't we just Google it?
You
just keep talking and I'm saying...
I want to say that there were 7... Was it 7 or 9 rings? It was like 7 dwarf lords and 9 humans. Right?
Yeah.
So what does that put us at? 20 rings?
Is that your final answer?
Yes?
Yes. According to my Googling, the rings of power forged by the elven smiths of the Noladrin settlement of Eregion. Best known were the 20 great rings.
Yes.
But many lesser rings with minor powers were also created at that time.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if they're gonna. I shouldn't read anymore. What if they talk about that in later episodes?
I know. Well, in Gandalf in Lord of the Rings movie refers to
Lord of the Rings 1, you mean?
Oh, geez. The Lord of the Rings tridge. Yeah, finger guns. He says something like, there are many rings of power in this world, and none of them should be taken lightly.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yep.
So yeah, out of 20, I guess, we'll do, of the 20 great rings, 20 being the best? Should we go with that?
Like the greatest, I guess.
Yeah.
But those would be the ones that Sonic would have. Or he'd be collecting them.
I wonder if he'll make an appearance in this show.
Oh, that'd be sweet. He just takes the ring and like throws it on the ground and like teleports somewhere.
That'd be great.
So, I mean, yeah. So I took some notes on it. I mean, I don't know if we want to like.
Well, no. Like, just what's your like overall rating?
We're going to go rating. How many rings of power?
Yeah, how many rings?
So out of 20,
apparently.
Yeah. That's sorry. I'm being Nate here. I'm just like, I didn't know what the heck you were talking about anymore. I was like, oh yeah, we're rating. Come, bring it back in.
I'll admit this got away from me a little bit, so
it's okay. So out of 20 rings, I would give the first episode 9.
9 out of 20. Ooh. Okay.
See,
okay.
I gave it a 9 because I feel like I wasn't like super into it for like the first 3/4 of the episode. I was just kind of like, but then it got better.
Yeah.
So I mean, 9 makes it feel like, well, that's less than half, so it's like, trash.
I mean, these are rings of power though, so I think.
True. I mean,
I don't know.
So I kind of slot it there in just kind of the mid. Like I wasn't like, I didn't hate it, but I didn't like love it.
Right. I didn't like it.
I just liked it. No.
So I was gonna say,
sorry. So
11.
Okay, you gave it an 11.
Yeah. So I mean,
so we're close.
Yeah,
we're close.
Okay, cool. For the first episode, I want to be clear.
Yes, first episode.
I feel like it does improve in the second.
I completely agree with you.
Which I hate.
Why?
I hate it when you have to watch more than one episode to get into it.
Okay, we're going like Parks and Rec, right?
Any show,
like seasons, right?
Any show.
But that's the one that like a lot of people tell you.
Yes.
Like, you gotta watch the first hold on, You gotta watch like the first 4 seasons before it gets good.
If you watch the entire series, you'll see that it's really actually genius.
Then
but
you
you have
gotta
to
watch
get to the
again,
end bit, and I don't care. No, that's too much time. I think I always tell people I like it when a show can grab you right away,
Right.
and when it's clear about what kind of expectations you should have going forward. House of Cards. I know Kevin Spacey's kind of a persona non grata.
Going to trial.
Is he really?
Soon, yeah.
I did not know that.
So that's exciting. Good luck, Kevin.
I guess.
Anyway,
I don't even know I don't even know what to think about that.
Yeah, he's
got
some trouble.
If you're thinking about watching House of Cards, watch the first 5 minutes.
Yeah.
If that's not good for you, don't watch anymore. I promise you, it doesn't get better.
Yeah. So you're right. Like Kevin's on its artistic merit, alone. That was an amazing. That first, like you said, first 5 minutes of that first episode, awesome.
Laid the groundwork perfectly.
Brilliant.
For expectations.
It was great.
And I've watched through season 3 or so.
Yeah, I stuck with it for a while, and it was kind of starting to go down, and then the whole
grates on me.
It does.
I mean,
it wears on you as you're watching.
Some shows do, even though I really like them, they just start wearing on me.
Yeah, me too. It's like. Is that more like an American thing? Because it's always like we got 87 episodes in season 1A, and then we got 87 more in season 1B.
Other countries don't even have multiple seasons of shows sometimes, it's just different. Like we're interested in franchises here, and they're like, no, let's produce a good thing, and when it's done, it's done.
They run a series. Each season, a season is a series, and they're like. We did 6 episodes, but it's movie quality. And you're like, oh my God.
Yeah.
God. It was 6 episodes, but it was amazing. And here we're like, God, we're 6 episodes in and nothing's happened.
Yeah. I want to end this show thinking, I hope that they're going to be in a year, they're going to go, ooh, let's make another season. That's how I want the show to end. So that's my weird kind of expectations for TV shows or serialized productions. And so the first episode is a lot of weird exposition. And I do think it's weird, and honestly, I thought it was unnecessary.
Yeah, they were doing a lot of a lot of heavy.
And I think, so
Galadriel was really having to do a lot of work there.
A lot of heavy lifting, which I actually don't mind. I think in Lord of the Rings, it's implied that she has she's elven, obviously, so she has a very long life, and she's been around for quite a while by the time Loder comes about. But it also implies that she wasn't just floating around the woods, doing whatever,
doing
being pretty.
Elf magic things.
It implies that she was a woman of power in those movies and in the books, I think.
Well, and so she narrates the beginning of Rings of Power.
Yeah.
And she also narrated the beginning of Fellowship of the Rings, right? Was she the one that was talking about all the rings and
Yes. But they were all of them deceived. Yeah.
Oh, chills.
Right? Even still, Cate Blanchett, man.
Yep. She's a treasure.
Absolutely.
So I mean, I don't know. I made little bullet point
Yeah, so what you got?
So that was my first one. Just my observation that she narrates the beginning of this show and the Fellowship. So I'm like, that's cool.
That was nice symmetry.
Yeah. And some of the other ones I wrote were just kind of just stupid, jokey ones. My next one is why didn't they fly the eagles to Mount Doom? LOL. And it was in parentheses, is an eagle. There's a shot of an in the battle, one of the big battle with I think, so it'd be with her brother, I think.
Right.
There's a shot of an eagle going down at the beginning of that. So I'm why didn't they fly the eagles to Mount Doom?
I know.
To tick off all the fan folk,
I guess.
Because they're always how what's a good way to tick off a Lord of the Rings fan is why didn't they just fly the eagles to Mount Doom? There's memes about it, whatever.
It's not a plot hole.
The elves got pretty.
They kind of got
decimated. They got there in that, and then one thing, I guess I had heard this name, but I didn't really know because again, I haven't read other works from Tolkien or in this universe. So it's so Sauron was the big baddie in Lord of the Rings, right?
Yes.
But Morgoth is even bigger.
Morgoth and Melkor.
Okay.
So
Morgoth, and I've heard that from other people I knew, friends of Oz. You know,
a couple of Friends of Oz.
Friends of Oz that have read like the Silmarillion and are talking about that stuff.
I have read the Silmarillion. It's
you have read it as well.
A little work. So it's kind of like work, honestly. It's fun. It's interesting, but it's a lot of work.
It's really like high language. It's like a.
So there's like
biblical. I always think of it as like a biblical flavor to it.
It really does. It's so like in terms of fantasy, there's
high fantasy,
various levels of fantasy, right? Urban fantasy, and then high fantasy, which is definitely Lord of the Rings, is high fantasy. The Silmarillion is like 10 steps above whatever high fantasy is, because of it's like just information. It's almost like an encyclopedia book.
Okay,
about
so
Lord of the Rings.
Is there a begat section of the Silmarillion? Because
there could be.
Begat.
Not quite. Begat. No, it's more vague. Brave young Jables. No, I don't think there's a begat section.
But that's like, if you've read, so listeners, if you have read the Bible or the Silmarillion, well, the Bible, the begat thing, because like I don't even know, like is it a whole like
the first chapter of Matthew is all genealogy.
Okay, so it's just like this person begat this person and this person begat this, and it just goes and just like you said, it's informational. It's just like laying it out. Yeah,
it's with a purpose, but it's definitely. Listen, I've never talked to somebody and been like, I received such a blessing from reading Matthew chapter 1. I'm sure they're out there.
Sure, yeah. Okay.
But I just, anyway. So the Silmarillion is very
dry.
It's a lot of information. There is cool information in there. But if there's something you have questions about, Google it. You're better off.
I bought the Silmarillion for my dad because he had, when the movies were coming out, way back in the way back days of 2000, was 99? When did Fellowship come out? Was it 2000?
No, I think it's okay.
We can Google it.
I'm gonna look it up here in a minute. Hold up. I'm gonna let you finish. I'm gonna put my guess out before I look it up.
Anyway, so when the movies were coming out, he had read them. My dad had read them. Even before that. Way back, because my dad. He's kind of old. Whatever. And so he read them at that time, and that was back when the whole Lord of the Rings, hype, obviously with the movies, the books were more popular, and so I got the Silmarillion for him for like Christmas or something. I don't think he read it. I actually think I took that copy because he never read it. Just like I took all of the DVD extended editions that I bought for the air quotes for the family.
Yeah,
I would buy them every year at Christmas time.
Oh yeah.
It's for the family. And then, but when I got older in college and I moved out, I was like, you know what? I bought these. Nobody watches them. I'm taking them for my own. So I did. Anyway.
2001, by the way.
Was when Fellowship
of the Ring, 2001, yeah.
Was it every year after that? So was it 01, 02, 03?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Sweet.
That was the joy of simultaneously filming all of them.
Right. They could just like boop, 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 boop.
Just smart.
Now, so
PJ.
Return of the King, that like cleaned up at the Oscars, right? Did that win Best Picture?
Mercier, did it clean up?
Did it win Best Picture and like like a whole bunch?
I don't think it won Best Picture.
Oh.
I just don't think it did. I'm reasonably certain it was nominated.
We'll see.
It won, I want to say, 11 Oscars.
Won Best Director and Best Picture.
Did it really win Best Picture? No kidding.
It did.
Director, I believe that.
Yeah.
Special effects.
76 Academy Awards.
Sound mixing, costume design. There's quite a list. It cleaned. It cleaned. It just became so iconic, which was also one of the hang-ups for like why I struggled to watch this. I'm trying really hard to judge Rings of Power on its own merits.
Right. So it's like you can't remove it completely.
No.
Like, well, Peter Jackson
not
working this, but
Peter could have done it better.
You can try. I believe you. I do not disagree.
So can we talk about Elrond for a second?
Yes.
So I did message our friend Jared about it a little bit, and because he was like, "So tell me some of your thoughts," and I was like, Robert Aramayo, aka Elrond, looks like a Wish version of Neil Patrick Harris.
He does, doesn't he? I was thinking this. I was like, he kind of looks like NPH.
He does, and
he's got a very broad jaw, though, doesn't he?
Yeah, he has a very strong chin.
Yes,
and forehead. Not like, I mean, it's not. You don't see either part of those things and be like, "Whoa, buddy!" But like when you look at him for a little while, it kind of jumps out a little bit. And it's fine. Like we all have, I'm sure I would meet someone who would say I'm funny looking, but like that's how he struck me. Yeah. And
and I don't want to detract from what little I've seen of his performance, but I feel like he does a pretty good job.
He does a phenomenal job.
A great job.
I think he's doing exactly what he needs to be doing so far from the episodes I've watched.
Because we got to remember, I mean, this is very like way prior to what everyone else knows of.
Yeah.
What the popular culture, like, oh, the Lord of the Rings movies. It's what's his name?
Hugo Weaving.
Hugo Weaving, yes.
Yeah.
It's him. No,
Yeah.
I mean, no. It's
very different, and my mom hated that Hugo Weaving in Lord of the Rings. She was always like, "Ugh, Elrond was horribly miscast." And from a certain point of view, I see her perspective, but Hugo Weaving brought a level of, I've seen some stuff and I know some stuff, and he's not going to explain himself about every little detail because he doesn't have to.
So at first I thought you said like Josh had seen some stuff.
No.
I'm like, what happened, man, on the streets?
When I was wandering through the streets of Rivendell.
Oh, sorry, go ahead. Continue.
So I never had a problem with it. And I think everything about him propped up what his character needed to portray. This guy, even though, I do kind of mock him a little bit about the Neil Patrick Harris thing, he's very fresh-faced at the same time.
He's very eager.
Yeah.
I feel like he's playing, their elven political game.
Yeah.
And Galadriel obviously is kind of like bristling at that a little bit, even though they're friends and maybe more.
Right? Did you get that? You got that vibe too, a little bit, like maybe.
Yeah, I'm like, are they gonna like go hold hands or something?
Right? Maybe there was like a wink there that you missed. That's what it felt like. But yeah, and I think that's intentional.
She's like the rebel. She wants to keep searching for the dark evil, and he's just like, relax, it's over. There's nothing going on. And of course, we know that's not true. But I feel like he was like, he's in a good spot, like for his career, I guess, as they call it, careers.
His elf career,
is that what they call it? But but like he's in a position, like a political-ish position, I guess, and he's willing to just stay in the confines of the system and like do what he's supposed to do, and he's encouraging Galadriel to do the same, and she's like, no, I want to.
The structure of the Elven society is very different in Rings of Power than it is in Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
And I don't have a problem with this. Like, I just think I'm just commenting on it because I actually think it's kind of cool because in Lord of the Rings, it's Elrond's elves at Rivendell, and then it's Galadriel's elves in the forest of Lothlorien, and then there's, Legolas's elves, the wood elves, I forget where he's from.
The
woods, obviously. And redwoods, California redwoods. But in the Rings of Power, it's a centralized elven government for Middle-earth, and they talk about the elf lords and the elf king, and they refer to it like there is a council, and it governs the entire body of elves. So I think,
so is the king.
I hope we see that. Get like wrecked. Like I think that would be cool.
Yeah, I guess if they're all in one society now in Rings of Power, then there's got to be some point where they splinter and split.
Yeah.
Well, and then they're in Middle Earth, and they're not even like home.
Right.
They're just kind of set up shop.
And as long they kind of stress how, since I don't think you've seen it, I'll just allude to it. There's a point where they talk about the difference of an elf's mentality about time versus other beings. And
wait, is that when Elrond talks to Durin?
Okay, yeah, you have seen it.
I have seen that, yeah.
So it's like episode 2 or 3.
He's like, it's only been 25 years, and he's like, I've had children.
Yeah,
they've grown up. I got married.
Yeah, and because dwarves don't live as long as elves, and Elrond's already been around for a long time.
So that was like, Durin was like, hey man, like, you may not think this is very long, but it's a long time for me.
Yeah, a lot's happened.
Yeah.
So I think that's really cool, the way they're alluding to that, and the way that they alluded to that, I think, and the way that some of the elves are like, we don't remember the war. Like, that was before our time. What war?
Yeah.
There's orcs, and we
maybe there's
bereft
orcs.
them.
Maybe I don't know what those are.
A few of them have seen them, and a few of them haven't, and it's kind of a little gray on that. But yeah, they're like, no, we're good. We're done. Like, let's get on. The war's
over. Let's just be cool.
Let's do what we need to do to move on to the Undying Lands.
Yeah, take the ship and just go. And I mean, she basically bails she literally bails at the last possible second.
Yeah, and it's interesting. The Galadriel's grown on me too in this show a lot, because I think it's I don't know. I think it'll be an interesting journey to take with her, and they're clearly setting her up for a lot of character development, which I like. I'm very vocal about that.
Yeah, I know, they're, again, the first episode, they're having to, explain a lot, and they're setting up, these, the main characters and like their group, and they're setting, they're in, they're going back and forth and all those. So they're setting all that up. And so I know, and always, granted, this is an Amazon, so they've got, just infinite cash to produce this, but, it is a pilot. So, you can't always expect the show to be amazing or trash. I'm not saying like I disagree with what you're saying, like about how like watching a show, but I'm like, but I think you can like have a little bit of like, I approached it kind of like, I'm not enjoying this first episode maybe as much as I'd hope that that it could be, even though I said I didn't come into with any expectations, but I was like, this is kind of boring, whatever. So I rated a 9, here tonight. Mm-hmm. But like I said, it started getting better. So I was just kind of like,
I actually was very intrigued by some things in the first episode. The way that they started, I did not realize that Galadriel had started in the Undying Lands. The Elven, there's a name for it. I can't remember what it is, so that's what I'm calling it.
They all start there?
But like most of them, yeah, a lot of the main players started there, and I always...
And then they traveled to Middle-earth?
Yeah, I didn't get that impression that that's how that happened in Lord of the Rings, but hey, that's fine. Okay. That was a choice.
There's a lot of locations, like, I don't recognize many of these locations either. But it is cool how they, like, when they transition, they go to the map and, like, they print the name. They're like, whoop, and they fly over to, to the next area.
It's interesting that you made the comment about it being, like, the pilot and stuff. One, I don't know if this stuff gets made that way anymore. I don't think they make the pilot and sell it. They sell it, and then they make the season, but...
Right.
They did not include the title card in the first episode.
So would that be like a cold open? Is that what they would call that?
Yeah, so that didn't come until the second episode. So I think it does have that pilot style feel of like, here's the groundwork.
Right.
Maybe things will change, maybe they won't.
Yeah, or maybe yeah, you're right. They all just made it at the same time. They didn't like slap it together on the backstage and like, all right, this is our idea.
Right.
We're gonna pitch it. Because sometimes they pitch it, and then if it's well received, I guess at least back in the day, they would maybe reshoot it sometimes, like if they like it.
Yeah, with refinement. So like that's why the first episode is the X-Files, right? That's why Scully's hair is different, and there's a few things that are just a little bit off.
Yeah,
compared to the next season.
Yeah, they film. Yeah, so like, well, and I think the X-Files was one of those where it's like, they film the pilot and they pitch it, and they took it, so they already had the first episode, so they they roll with that. But then like second episode, her and other things maybe look a little different.
Suddenly they have maybe a bigger budget, so they do stuff
Lights
different.
are brighter. They have whatever. The set looks
And I don't know that shows are made that way. It doesn't feel like shows are made that way anymore.
Yeah, I think you're right. I feel like these companies have something like are I guess willing to put more trust into somebody, rather like give them a little bit longer leash rather than just like a single episode.
Yeah,
and be like, no, we'll fund you for like a whole season, and then you make the whole thing, and then we talk.
Yeah.
Although I think I saw something on Reddit, like a headline that said they're going to start filming season 2.
Yeah.
So it's like are they even done?
I think that's good though. Like
it?
to just keep them all rolling. Like if you're going and you have a vision in mind, keep it going. What I would love them to announce is say, hey, we have 5 seasons planned.
There you go.
That's it. And be like, okay, so there's an end point that we're working towards, because I could see them stretching it out and kind of having like filler episodes and weird side stories. And I think that could be a mistake. I think if they're trying to like fully finish engaging the fans, build towards something.
Yeah.
I
agree. Like the filler, don't produce 30 episodes for a season just to have like
when you only
8
need
episodes
2.
of meaningful events, it's just so I guess some other notes, or do you have some, have you been going through your notes here, or is there, I feel like I rattled off like 4 or 5 of mine. So.
So I was gonna say I think the world feels foreign to me. And again, I tried to go into this cold. Like, let's not have any expectations. Try not to compare this to the movies. It's not really fair. But I can't help it. And the Peter Jackson version of Middle-earth, there was very different cultural things that went on. And they're getting into it a little bit. And I think by the 3rd episode, they really do. But there's some stuff that feels just like really weird to me. A lot of the elven stuff feels wrong. It feels off. The best example I have is this. The swords that they use are ridiculous. They are like stupidly large. And there's like no explanation or reason for it, and I'm like, that's not a thing. I don't care how strong a being you are, that sword, not practical for you. But in Lord of the Rings, the movies, they have these like double-bladed,
aren't they like real sleek and like, just it's all about speed, right? Like, the swords that they laid down in that cave, like you said, were huge. Like they're like, you'd have to be like some giant knight to be like wielding
claymores on a horse. Like they're using like broadswords like that, and
they just like pull them off their backs like nothing. Like, wow.
I'm like, they're strong, but like you would make weapons to enhance your strengths, and the elves are lithe.
Makes it harder. For you. They're not like
they're lithe and fast, so that's how their weapons
creatures.
would be.
Yeah, they're sleek and
so I'm hoping that there's like a point of refinement, because I feel like all of the elven stuff is unrefined. And that's what I loved about Peter Jackson's portrayal of the elves. It's not so in the books, right? They're referred to as the fair folk, and some people, a lot of people, have complained about this. That meant they were white, and I always took that to mean like it was like an old English term of like, oh, they're fairer. Like we would, they're nicer. They're more beautiful than we are, and then that's further described in the books, and like everything that they did falls into that.
They're fair, they're beautiful.
Everything that they make with the purpose of practicality, yes, but also, can we make this beautiful? How pretty can we make this? How great can we make this? And like that's how I feel like Peter Jackson's elves do a really good job of that. These elves, not so much. And so I'm curious to see if we get to the point where there's like a shift in like the mindset, and they're like, ooh, well, why not make it better? Why not do this? And that's what I'm hoping for.
Yeah, you're right. I think, well, and speaking of swords, that kind of goes into one of my notes, like I feel like there's a lot, maybe too many like gratuitous like sword and dagger unsheathings. Shing.
Yes.
Shing. So, well, and like Galadriel,
You're not wrong.
especially, like I saw her when she gets into that cave, she pulls out a map, and then she pulls out her dagger.
To like
and
point
points to it. I'm like, why the heck did she pull out her dagger?
Right.
I feel they focus a lot on her dagger, and I feel like that's going to have must have some significance, because otherwise it feels really stupid. Like, why the heck do they keep, like, they really make it like just obvious and like blatant, like Galadriel is sheathing her dagger. Whoosh.
Yep.
She's pointing at something with the dagger.
If she's pointing, it's with the dagger.
Yeah. And I'm like, that felt odd to me.
Yeah. I agree. I will say though that dagger is the most elvish thing in my mind. Like
that's kind of more
weapon-wise.
in line with like what, like, just make it a little bit longer and you got yourself a nice elven sword.
Yeah,
perhaps,
right.
you know?
I don't know. I will say, not to like, because I don't want to poo-poo totally on the elves and some of the design stuff. So I do want to say something that I do like, and that is the elf ranger guy.
Oh yeah, he's cool.
Yeah. Arondir, Ismael Cruz Cordova. His armor and the stuff that his troop wears, they look like ent faces on the armor, on like their breastplate. I think those are freaking cool. I was like, yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Like, double down on some of this stuff because I love that and the way that looks.
Yeah, he's like a down and dirty, like just salt of the earth, like, well, I don't know if I want to say that, but like he's like a blue collar ish kind of, like he's out doing the dirty, patrol work and stuff. But he's still quite fair. He's still a beautiful elven creature.
I guess while we're on the topic of it, I'll say publicly, I don't have a problem with the like multiple races playing.
I don't either.
The multiple races.
I found it really refreshing to see people of color in just in the different characters. I'm like, that's really cool.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot more females. There's a lot more females, ethnic diversity, and I think there's no reason for it, and at the same time, there's no reason not to do it.
No.
So and because of that, that's fine. I don't care. I think that's. I don't think I could care less at this point.
Like we said earlier, like just the internet and people like getting upset about whatever. I'm like, it's like, who cares?
Yeah,
like, I don't care. I think it's awesome. I don't care. I mean, so I care. I mean, it's awesome. I think it's awesome. But I'm like, why are people getting upset about this stuff?
Yeah, I don't. I've been very vocal before about like how it's unreasonable to try and demand that Tolkien, who's been dead for like 60 years, that he should have had more diversity in the books. Because also, like, think about
it,
think about when he wrote it. Think about his background at the time. People give Lord of the Rings a hard time because they're like, well, there's only like 3 women in it, and they don't even talk to each other, and blah blah blah. I'm like, yeah, no, that's true. But let's look at this another way. We have a dude who went to all boys school.
Yep.
Then he went to like college or high school or finishing school, whatever the English thing is at the time. Before that, he could be done with that. He went to war with the other men to kill other men.
Right.
Most of whom were white. And then when he came back, he taught at an all-male college and then basically married the first woman he met. Terrible synopsis, but that's about what it is.
We're sorry.
Whom he based one of his characters off of. And so he had no experience, like, with women in general, or other races in general. I think demanding that he somehow should have been more inclusive or anything is unreasonable.
Yeah, and
but I think going back to Rings of Power, like, they have an opportunity. They found people who were good for the roles that they needed filled. And they said, "Okay, you got it."
Yeah, I agree with you on the Tolkien thing. Like, it makes sense why he wrote characters and the ethnicities, I guess, of skin color of the people that were there, and it it is what it is. But now, like, we're at where we are now in history and culturally and everything, and it's a great opportunity, and like you said, you find people right for the role, and who cares?
And I'll say it doesn't feel, some shows actually I do dislike it because it feels like it's, if you're doing a show, you're here for entertainment purposes, and representation is important in entertainment, 100%. But you can't let anything get in the way of telling the story you're trying to tell. None of this interferes with that. And I think it props up Middle Earth as a very diverse place with like a lot of weird stuff. You saw those guys with the giant antlers on their backs,
who apparently were foretold in some Hobbit literature, writings.
I don't know. Yeah, like you got all kinds of weird stuff.
Yeah, and I love like the skull caps that I think it's the humans, like just the men, the race of men or whatever. I'm like, man, that just looks like so like old timey, like Englishy, like Middle Ages stuff. I'm like, that's just awesome.
It does.
I really like the hobbits.
Yeah, the Harfoots.
Yeah, and so it's like they must have evolved, like, because these feel like very nomadic, like gathering.
I don't think
like group, and then like in Lord of the Rings, they're settled and they have like their communities, and they're not like popping up out of holes. Like, well, I mean, they're in holes in the ground, but like they're not like hiding from other creatures and like popping out and like moving camp and that kind of thing.
Yeah, I think it's I love the Harfoots so far. I love everything about them.
I like them so much.
They've kind of got their it reminded me a little bit of like is it Greek mythology? Because there's like these three women who keep talking to like the leader of the Harfoots about like omens and stuff, and I was like, oh, these are like the fates a little bit. That's fun. I think there's a chance that these are not hobbits per se. I think there's a chance that these are whatever Gollum was before he got twisted.
But was he not?
He was something.
He was like halfling.
Yeah, he was halfling, but he was like hobbit adjacent kind of.
They were water people.
Yeah, so I think it's like a different tribe of hobbits, and and those ones are Harfoots, and then hobbits are hobbits.
Okay,
and so that's kind of what I.
Well, and I was kind of wondering too. I'm like, when I was looking at them, like you see them, and you're like, okay, they got hairy feet. Okay, so they're probably. I'm like, just watching it. I'm like, okay, these must be hobbit folk. But then it's like, I'm like, they're not really doing like, they are a little bit, I guess, like the size difference, like doing that, like, yeah. But it's like they're not like, it doesn't look like they have like necessarily like stunt doubles and like the forced perspective, like they don't.
There's definitely a little, but it's
a little bit of it, I guess.
It's more subtle, I think.
And I was watching that, and I'm like, you know what? I don't care. I don't care about that either. I'm like, it's fine. It doesn't interfere with the story, and I'm not like. Yeah, it doesn't bother me. Mm-mm. And there's the mysterious man.
The stranger.
That's what they refer to him?
Yeah.
So I'm seeing this guy, and I'm like... So me and my
who do you think he
uncultured brain, my non-knowledge brain, I'm like... Is it Gandalf? Please tell me it's Gandalf. It's Gandalf rolling into town, right? That's got to be.
It could be.
Because, like, didn't he come from far away?
I think it's...
Like, from space, man?
Saruman. That's who I think it is. Because he's referred to as like the wisest, and I think it refers to him as like the oldest in their order. Okay. So that's what I think, but I don't know.
Are we gonna? I mean, obviously the Silmarillion gets into where these guys come from, right?
Yeah,
but I mean, is this going to? Because I mean, he falls out of the freaking sky.
He does, like a meteor.
Like, he just
and he's got power too. Like
but he like can't like quite. Well, he can't communicate, obviously. Yeah, at least yet.
He has speech, but it's no language that the little Harfoot girl recognizes.
He can draw stuff, and he can like suck the life out of everything around him.
Fireflies.
Like, make it dark, and I don't know. That was I really like that guy so far. And
this show made me really sad during part of it when they're talking when the Harfoots have these lanterns that are lit by fireflies. It just made me sad because I was like, I can't remember the last time I've seen a firefly.
Yeah,
it's been so long.
In the backyard.
Do you?
Yeah, I feel like I've seen.
Anyway,
keep your eye out.
Used to see him a lot, and now I
year,
don't
I
see him as
guess.
much. Right? I know we're getting into the colder months here.
But
yeah, I'm very intrigued by the stranger. So far, I haven't met anybody in the show that I've been like. Elrond comes the closest, where I'm like, this person is pulling me out of the story. I haven't met anybody like that.
Okay.
So you've gotten to the point where we've seen Durin.
I love him, by the way. He's great.
100%.
I've seen and his wife is great too.
The dwarves are perfect. I have nothing negative to say about the way they're doing the dwarves in this show. Nothing at all.
And Moria is
Yeah, it's coming together,
awesome
right?
place.
So I will say this. So were you disappointed that Durin's wife did not have a beard?
I was kind of wondering about that a little bit. So, according to the literature, is she supposed to have a beard?
I don't remember dwarf women being described ever in the books. So in the movie, there's like a throwaway line where Aragorn... when Gimli is telling this woman...
Wait,
he's
did
like,
you say Aragorn? Isn't that a dragon master dude?
You mean Aragon?
Is that it?
I don't know. That's how I say it.
Aragorn?
Aragorn? I've always said Aragon.
Really?
Yes.
Really?
That's how... I mean, I learned to pronounce the names by reading the book. So I could be way off. And Tolkien's
Isn't
not
there
here
an
to correct
R
me.
in there somewhere?
Sure. But there's all kinds of letters and all kinds of words that make no sense. So I don't know if that's a good argument.
Anyway.
Aragorn? Okay. Aragorn. Anyway, so Gimli, they're traveling and Gimli's telling, I can't remember her name, about like dwarven life. He's like, a lot of people say there's no dwarf women and that our children just pop out of the earth. And
I remember that. Yeah.
and he's like, but that's not true. They're beautiful, blah, blah, blah. And the chick looks up at Aragorn. He's like, it's the beards.
Oh.
Implying that dwarf women had beards. And that's why people think there are no dwarf women is because they look the same as dwarf men. Or the difference is so subtle that you have to be a dwarf to know it. I think... So yeah, I was just wondering, like, were you disappointed?
Well, so I had heard a little bit about that online, like talking about that, and so I think I'd heard like somebody said sideburns, so I was kind of like looking like, well, is she gonna have like extra hairy like sideburns? I'm like, well, maybe a little bit, but I mean, so I was thinking about it a little bit, but I wasn't like,
Yeah.
disappointed or anything.
Okay. No, I think if they had tried it, it would have been like a jumping the shark moment already.
I just
think
long.
It would have been too much.
Yeah,
because it's a fun thing, and I think
and like how would they have done that where it didn't seem like gimmicky,
like a gag. Yeah,
like just like, oh yeah, okay, it's a woman, she's got this beard.
I think it could have been done. I think it was the right choice to not.
Yeah,
and you could take we could take Aragorn's comment in the movie as like sarcastic as well, like.
Yeah, I mean...
Maybe he doesn't know either, and so he's just making stuff up. I
mean, I think, thinking now, I remember that line. I mean, it seems like... Because the Miranda... her name, it's Éowyn.
Oh, it's Éowyn, yeah. Good call.
Because she laughs. She, like, giggles like when he says that.
So, yeah, maybe they're just joking around.
Could have been.
Who knows?
So there was a line... I think they were so this is going back to when the elves are in the cave, like when they do that, they're real badass, like climbing up the ice, with their daggers and stuff.
Yeah.
Scaling the mountain. So I was like, they're like, what devilry is this? And I was like, oh, that seems like I'm like, doesn't that seem like kind of a cliched kind of like thing? Like, what devilry is this? But I'm like, at the same time, it fits in with the Lord of the Rings style. Like, so I'm like, that's not like a bad... wasn't a bad line. It's just, it's like we've heard, I guess, like, especially after Lord of the Rings, you kind of hear that kind of fantasy, those lines. So you're just kind of used to them. But I'm like, it's not a bad line, I guess.
Anything that's not Lord of the Rings, regardless of when it came out, that uses high fantasy type speak, semi Old English, what devilry is this? And what do your elf eyes see? Well, Aragorn, in my country, we just call them eyes. You know, it all is like Lord of the Rings stuff, eh? You know, like that's the filter that it gets passed through now.
Right. And there was an orc frozen in carbonite? Question mark? No,
What?
it wasn't carbonite. it whatever. It was the dark magic or whatever that they were screwing around with, right? Well, because they're in the cave, and there's an orc that's just like he's up against the wall. So I was just like, using carbonite. Yeah. Like
Star Wars reference.
Yeah, Star Wars.
It's everywhere.
Nerds. And,
You know, Star Wars is fantasy set in space. This is just fantasy, so close enough.
What did you think of Galadriel's sword jump to attack the snow troll?
I loved it.
See,
Well, honestly,
I thought, when I saw that, I'm like, that's dumb. That's gimmicky. But is it any more dumb or gimmicky than the awesome Legolas shield surfing?
precisely. And I think I think it shows.
Is that like a nod to that, something like that? Because I mean, that's like a real like wild
Again,
kind of stunt.
Thinking of it in terms of like, is this propping up the story to me? The elves have a different culture and a different mindset because of how long lived they are. So Galadriel and her troop have been on patrol longer than most other beings in Middle Earth have been alive. So I think you get into a rhythm with people that you are closely associated with for extended periods of time. So I think that's what it's speaking to me. And honestly, I want to see like Galadriel unleashed at some point. Like I want to like get her another little dagger and let her go to town. I want to see like somewhere between Kill Bill and Couching Tiger, Hidden Dragon and The Matrix, Galadriel like going to town.
Yeah. Well, because like apparently she's the only one that knows how to deal with a giant terrifying creature because it's like she just kicks the crap out of it. Just like,
yeah, it was great.
And that sword jump, even when I first saw it, I was like, it's dumb, but like I guess because like how flashy and like whatever it is, but like thinking like, well, it's a very big creature and she had to get up there, so why not? And like you said, I mean, they've been on patrol together, so they know how to work together and how to do whatever, if they've practiced stuff like that, then it works, then do it.
Exactly. That's what I thought. I thought it was cool.
So okay.
I hope we see more of that stuff, and then I hope we get to see dwarven and human or Harfoot reactions to it. Like I hope it freaks them out because it should. That would definitely imagine playing. So let's like take this out of like a combat situation for a second. Let's imagine like we had a human basketball team playing against an elven one, and all of a sudden the elves are like, give me a boost or whatever, and they're doing like Space Jam type dunks and whatever. Like the humans would be dumbfounded, and they'd be like, is that allowable? Can they do that? Like, well, it's not against the rules, so I guess they can. Like the the Air Bud problem. The rules don't say a dog can't play, so we're gonna let the dog play. I have no idea. I have not actually seen those movies. That's what I imagine them to be like.
So you don't know if that line may not be in there?
It probably is. I mean, it's got to be. It's a cheesy, fun kids movie. You need exposition.
No, I agree with you because this is like a very different Galadriel than what we have seen in film or TV, before this. Like she was like very, I mean, she was kind of scary. I mean, she still is kind of scary a little bit. Yeah. But like, the Cate Blanchett one, in a different way. Like she's kind of like, yo, this lady knows a lot and it's kind of freaking me out. I mean, she's very pretty, very beautiful, but she's scary and she knows a lot of things. But she never does any like combat, right? We don't see her fighting in any, she's just this wise creature.
Elven Lord, yeah.
Yeah.
In the movie, you do get the impression that she is a being of extreme power, though. That you have that whole scary scene
where she's like offered
the ring, yeah, and she rejects it or like, whatever.
Like that whole like darkening, like very freaky.
Yeah,
like that was a scary scene.
It was, and I think So I think we're seeing her a different way in that in the is this in the movie or is it just in the book? I'm pretty sure it's in the movie. Gimli, as they're leaving Galadriel's, as they're leaving Lothlorien, she gave every member of the party like a gift, right? And so Gimli wanted he wanted a hair because he thought she was that beautiful that's what he wanted. And so she gave her 3.
She gave me 3.
And the Galadriel in Rings of Power is not the kind of woman that you would want a hair from yet. But I feel like I can kind of see the dots, how they could be connected later on. Not specifically plot-wise, like that sort of thing, but I can see, okay, we're starting here. We know we're going to get to here. Okay, I can see that. I can see that that's a place we're going to go. So I think it's just, we've got like impertinent Galadriel kind of, fairly young and wants to rush off and fight the bad guy and fulfill her oath.
Yeah. Well, and I think, based on where I'm at in the show, it's like everyone's like, no, you're wrong. The evil is gone from the land. Like you should don't seek it anymore. And
yeah,
she's like, no, I'm gonna seek it, and then they're gonna find out that the evil is still there. She was right the whole time.
I know. I think I think this show is gonna get very political. I don't mean like present day politics or whatever. I mean within the universe. I think it's gonna get political. I think it has to, because you think about Galadriel's like speech at the beginning of Lord of the Rings, and she talks about like how everybody was deceived and was kind of tricked into taking the rings, and then sucked in or whatever. So like I'm kind of excited to see that.
See how that plays out. Maybe it'll
yeah,
you're right.
So I'm kind of excited to see like somebody come back and be like, "Oh, hey guys, I'm totally not the bad guy." And at home, we're all going to be like, "Yeah, you are."
Well, I mean, we already are kind of seeing that a little bit because Elrond is taken or goes to work with that guy that is gonna create that forge that's gonna be super duper hot.
Celebrimbor.
Celebrimbor?
Yeah. CELEBRIMBOR.
Celebrimbor.
I'm sure these are all names taken straight from the book, but man, you can read it, you just can't say it.
Well, and that's what prompts Elrond to go talk to Durin.
Yeah,
because they want to work Durin's together with him.
Yeah, which I like. I like that. So I mentioned I thought Elrond's actor Robert Aramayo is kind of fresh-faced, but I think that works in a lot of ways. He's willing to try new things.
Also, he is an elf, and they are
absolutely
soft, fair, fresh-looking beings. Right?
Absolutely, I think it works two ways. He's kind of implied. He's not an elf lord. He's not on the council that I'm aware of yet. Obviously we know who but I think it's kind of implied that his youth is what allows him to be willing to say, no, let's talk to dwarves, when all of his other fellow elves are like, dirty dwarves, get out of here.
Yeah. Yeah, he's like, yeah, I'm buds with them.
Yeah.
Dude, let's go talk to
friends.
them.
I thought that. What did you think about the competition that they had?
I thought that was cool. I thought that was fun. Although I was very confused, and I'm sure. I mean, obviously they did that on purpose. Like I'm sure everyone was like very confused. Like why was Durin so pissed off and not friendly towards this guy who's supposed to be his buddy?
Right.
And they're like, no, we're gonna do this contest, breaking rocks. Whoever quits first loses.
Banished forever. Yeah, I liked it quite a bit. I
felt the actor for Durin is really fun,
top notch. I love that they're showing extreme cultural differences between some of the races, and that they have their own traditions and focuses or whatever. And like that's the dwarven thing is like, let's break rocks until one of us can't.
Yeah.
And I thought Elrond was going to win.
Yeah, me too. I thought he was too. Maybe he quit on purpose.
I think he did. I think and maybe it's my conspiracy theory part of my brain, but I'm like, no, I think we're going to get, like I said, I think we're going to get very political. I think Elrond is going to be at the middle of a lot of it, and he's going to be the one who's like really carefully negotiating these waters. And because I don't think there's a good way to negotiate them, but I think he will negotiate them the best. And I think this is part of it I think he quit on purpose.
I haven't thought about that until now.
He was like, yeah, he was a little tired, but I mean, he's an elf, right?
Well, but I guess I was a little surprised though when like, because his hammer breaks, and so they give him another one.
Yeah.
Does he break one more and then quit, or is he just like he's like sizes it up and then he's just like, I'm done?
Yeah, he was just like, how much more do I want to swing this hammer? Like,
yeah, so I was kind of like, man, that's it. Like he's like, so yeah, you're right. I mean, it would just seem a little.
I could well be reading into it too much.
It could be,
maybe not.
Well, and you bring up the thing about it getting political. It's like, I guess, like we know that there really isn't like good times ahead for quite a while, right?
Right.
There's going to be a lot of stuff, a lot of bad stuff that's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess it'll be interesting, like you said, it'll be interesting to see how they approach that. And like, it's like, we don't know, like, how far are we going to go? Like, how close are we going to get to, to the time?
That is a good question.
How close are we going to get to, to The Hobbit, Lord of the Rings, whatever? I mean,
yeah.
I don't know.
And we know that, so I know we're into the spoilers here about the show, but I guess spoilers if you don't know the Lord of the Rings movie.
I guess if you
warning.
Yeah, some spoilers for that too. Okay.
Was a little different. Like, we know that there will be an alliance between the elves and the men, right? To go forward and fight the orcs and
right,
overthrow the Sauron and stuff. So like, we know we'll get there. It's just, yeah, I'm very. Like I said, I went into this show not wanting to watch it, no expectations, kind of a little bit with the disposition of I'm not gonna like this. I might keep watching it now because I kind of want to see how some of this is gonna go.
Yeah, So I watched like the first two for sure, and I think parts of 3, maybe the whole. I'll have to see where I'm at. But I haven't watched it for, I don't know, a week or two. But not because I was like bored with it. I just haven't, I just haven't picked it back up yet. So yeah, I'm definitely interested to see what's going to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. It's.
Oh, so another one of my last note here. I thought it was a cool line, but it kind of made me chuckle because Galadriel was talking to Elrond. She's like, "Evil does not sleep, Elrond. It waits." And I was like Chuck Norris.
I've heard rumors that Chuck Norris will play Sauron in this show. Let's see if that's true. I have not heard any rumors.
But it was a cool line, but that's immediately what I thought of. I'm like, it's Chuck Norris.
Yeah. I think the show overall, I think it's unrefined. And I hope that that's intentional. I hope that I hate to say it, but like, conflict often brings about certain change. And a lot of times it feels like that's the only way we get major change. And sometimes it's cultural or societal of like attitudes, and sometimes it's technology. Like when you have a pressing need and you start focusing all your energies on like, well, how can we make our planes be more agile or whatever? You discover a bunch of stuff. So I'm hoping that that's kind of where we get. I hope there's a little more refinement on the elves specifically. The humans are fine. The Harfoots are fine. I mean,
dwarves are great.
I could nitpick a few things, but I won't because I feel like I'm negative too much. The dwarves are perfect.
Well, and it's kind of sad, like, talking about conflict and change, like, because like, that the dwarves are gonna run into some problems, and they're not gonna be there forever.
I do. After that first episode where I was like, man, I was like, oh,
I'm like, so
I know it's coming.
It's a little kind of a bittersweet thing because you're like, man, this is so cool, but then you're like, oh, what's gonna happen? What's gonna happen later?
So I hope that we do see. I want to see Saruman the Wise, Gandalf the Grey. I want to see Radagast the Brown, and I want to see the Blue Twins, whose names I can't remember because they're only mentioned in passing in the Silmarillion. There's 5 in the order that I'm aware of, and they're 2 twins that travel together. And they're blue. Their color is blue for their robes.
Okay.
So I want to see all 5 of them kind of like come together.
How confident are... So, wait. So, see, I haven't read the Silmarillion, so I don't...
I know.
So, you're talking about 5...
Wizards.
How like what is your confidence in each of the ones that you think we're going to see them?
Ooh, that's a great question. Okay. I don't think you can have a Lord of the Rings show and not feature Gandalf.
I agree.
So I think he's a lock.
Yes.
I'm locking that in. Alex.
Boom. Final answer.
I feel super confident we're going to see Saruman.
Makes sense.
I also think because he's referred to as Saruman the Wise, I think he will be a guiding hand in a lot of how this works. Because he doesn't turn sour.
And he wasn't always bad.
Until Lord of the Rings time, yeah.
He was like Gandalf's mentor, basically, right?
So that's
it would
why
make
I think
sense
the
that he would
stranger
come first, yeah.
Yeah, that's why I think the stranger is Saruman.
Okay.
I think he's here first, and then he teaches the other dudes when they arrive, however they arrive. I never got the impression they came out from like a star in the sky, but like, hey, why not? It's not specified that I'm aware of, so
cool. Yeah, they're like wizards, so like
they're wizards. Who knows?
They weren't like
they arrive.
They weren't born
precisely when they mean to.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, they're sent. They're like missives from the gods.
So they're just like
anyway. So I think.
So those are the 2 that I know, and then you're talking about.
So those 2 are a lock for me. I think it's guaranteed.
Okay.
Radagast the Brown.
Ah, yes, Radagast. He's in The Hobbit.
He is, and he's so
great.
Great. I think it actually a little. I really can't decide because he is kind of silly in The Hobbit, and I see why they could do a more serious version. He's a maybe. The twins, I just probably not, honestly. Or if we do, it'll be like.
So
was that them? That was them.
It was a nod to them. So we'll go 2.5.
2.5.
5. And I mean the shows. I mean it's not like completely serious all the time. I mean especially with the Harfoots. I mean there's like some and and the dwarves too. There's some lighter, kind of almost silly stuff, right?
Yeah.
So I mean it wouldn't be out of the realm.
Not out of the question.
So speaking of like characters that we hope would show up again. One of my favorite places online, Reddit. There's a subreddit for like Tom Bombadil.
Give me some of that Tom Bomb.
I think I don't know if it's been confirmed, but they're like, no, he's not going to show up.
As portrayed by Jim Carrey. I said it then when Lord of the Rings first came out. I'll say it again now. If Tom Bombadil did not work for the Peter Jackson movies. I do not begrudge him for not including it. He would not have worked. That'd be just too much extra.
Yeah.
They could work him into this because he's
been around.
Is right.
He's old.
He's real old.
Goldberry and
his
.
Or we could have Boromir. No, not Boromir. I'm sorry, Bjorn. The guy in The Hobbit who turns into a bear, and they like in the book, Gandalf is like, "Ooh, we're gonna stop at this house. Only Thorin and you can come with me." And he goes and introduces them, and the guy's like, "Gandalf, you brought too many guests with you. This sucks."
Oh, Bjorn.
Bjorn. And then
Bjorn,
he keeps having them like show up more and more, and then he's like, "Listen, I know you have more people with you. Just get all of your annoying friends in here, Gandalf." He could be played by Nick Offerman.
Okay.
I think he could be really cool because
a warrior with great strength.
Yeah, he has great strength. He has some weird OP magical abilities, and I think it would add flavor. I think it could add a lot of flavor, and I like flavor.
Yeah. Well, it's like we're kind of in a really now we both said we came into this like with, you know, not really caring or not having expectations, but now that we're in it, we're getting a little more invested, and we're like, man, what if? So it's like, it's a great time to be in it because, you know, there's so much optimism for like what could happen or like characters that could show up.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's still a hard decision for me to understand doing a prequel like this. But at the same time, I could also, like, the hardcore nerd in me is like, yeah, but wouldn't you want to play in that playground?
Yes.
Like, I absolutely would. If I was a show writer or runner or even just a writer in general, I'd be like, yeah, I would definitely want to write some, like, Lord of the Rings fanfic.
Yeah.
And
who doesn't want to think about, I mean, that's probably the trap that a lot of these like studios or writers or whatever fall into with like these films that or shows that turn into these massive franchises, sometimes for good, sometimes for ill, you know, where it's like, well, we had this great story, you know, let's explore what happened before or after, or whatever, you know. So it's like, you're right. I mean, it's prime. It's on Prime.
Let's see what you did there.
Anyway, I didn't plan that, by the way. I was just totally off the cuff. Just a great, playground is a great word for it, because who doesn't want to explore? Like you said, who doesn't want to explore that? So it's really cool.
I do think, yeah, absolutely, and it's and you never know what you're gonna get from. Like unhooking the reins on somebody too a bit, and I'm thinking specifically of I'm sure you've heard of the game Zelda, the franchise.
Yes.
Did you know that Zelda started as a Mario game? Somebody said, "Hey, I have an idea for the next Mario game. Let's do this and this and this," and they built it out a little bit, and they were like, "Ooh, it just feels too different from Mario to say this is a Mario game," and they were like, "Ooh." You're right. And they shelved it. And then they came back to it and like, I know, but we did a bunch of work on it and it's really fun. And then they just changed the names and then doubled down on that sort of, I guess Zelda's fantasy.
Yeah.
Fantasy world settings and stuff. And it's become fantastic. Like, my son loves playing Breath of the Wild. And
I mean, they keep releasing games.
And they're great.
There's been, I don't know how many there's been since Breath of the Wild. At least 2 or 3 that have come out, and they always do them like they change up the style, like the animation, or
which I think is cool.
Gameplay, and that's really interesting. Keeps it fresh for sure.
So I hope at some point somebody like does that. You know, I feel like we don't always need to have. This show could have been something else and been like Lord of the Rings inspired.
Yeah. What if we do like a modern retelling?
That would be interesting.
Lord of the Rings.
The Aragon, the one about the dragon series by Christopher Paolini, has been described as a fantasy setting for Star Wars, and there's actually a lot of similarities for a lot of parts of that. And
I've never read any of those.
So they're
or seen. They made one movie.
They did. It did not do well.
Wasn't it supposed to be a big like movie franchise, and then they're like, nah,
it was
not
hated.
After this. Yeah,
it's generally hated. But yeah, it's basically like kind of a Star Wars inspired fantasy series. And so the joke is, I mean, they've been saying this for years, and the author has said, I want to do sci-fi next. I mean, it's been a while since he put out a book. Come on, Christopher. They were like, oh, well, next he should do a sci-fi retelling of Lord of the Rings. And in his own style, and he adds a lot of other stuff. It's not like a 1-to-1 ratio.
Yeah, sure.
The foundation is the same, though. In the first book, it's very similar in a lot of ways to New Hope.
Okay.
And I see a lot of similarities in a certain character to Lethal Weapon, actually.
Oh. No, so does he...
No spoilers, but that's...
I mean, does he acknowledge that? And does he say, like, I
don't know.
Yes, this is Star Wars inspired.
He talks about being he talks about like influences and stuff, but I don't know that he actually comes out and is like,
But if you read it and you think about it and like compare them, you're like, oh yeah,
yeah.
oh yeah, it's there. Okay.
Some authors do. Jim Butcher talks about. He was like, I write, and I often put on like my favorite movies while I'm writing. And so he was like, and you can tell in this one book when Harry goes into the catacombs, he's like, yeah, I mean, I was watching The Two Towers. And I was like, Mines of Moria.
Nice.
This is one of my favorite parts. And he's like, and that's when I stopped writing. And then when I went back to writing, I didn't do it consciously, but I mean, the influence is definitely there.
That's cool. That's neat.
Harry doesn't fight a Balrog or anything, but anyway.
Balrog.
Yeah. That part.
That's cool.
So I think there's a lot of opportunity here.
Yeah, and I mean,
gonna finish.
That's cool. Like, just like thinking about that, how artists, or creators, authors, artists, whatever, whatever medium, how they are influenced by things. I think there's like maybe sometimes an unfair expectation that they have to come up with something completely original and fresh, and it can't. If it reminds you of something else, or takes from something else, you're like, oh, that's bad because it's derivative and blah blah blah. But it's like, it's impossible to just. I mean,
it is.
You're influenced by all the stuff that you've seen and things you've taken in, your life experiences and your favorite things, and so it's like it's like almost impossible to just make something whole, completely new. And it's not bad if there are those reminders and those influences, because it's like it's just cool. It's like
Dresden Files fans not jokingly at all actually, request for the author's movie list and music list for what he was reading and listening to at the time and watching when he was writing the book, so that you could like feel some of the influences a little more.
Oh,
he's never released it that I'm aware of.
Oh, really?
He's always flattered by it, but he's like, I don't know about that.
Really? But like every time he releases a book, people are like, oh my God, what were you listening to or watching?
It comes up quite a bit.
Is that just
more than you would think?
Is that just because he like references things, or
it was because of that comment in a panel where he's talking about, because he gets asked a lot, as I'm sure all authors do, like, what is your like writing?
Yeah, what's your
process?
What's
your process? Yeah. He's famous for saying there's no such thing as writer's block. He was like, there's no such thing as writer's block. It's called I have a mortgage. This is my job. He's like, this is my job, is to write books. This is what I've chosen to do. And so he's like, how long do you work at your job? And they're like, well, 8 hours a day. And he's like, exactly. I write when I'm writing and not on like tour and doing that kind of stuff. He's like, I write for 8 hours a day. He revealed that he burns through a laptop in less than a year.
Wow.
It's like less than a year to 18 months, depending on how the year's been going, because he types that much on it that he kills it.
Really?
Yeah. He's like, he writes on it and then sometimes games with it. So,
Sounds like he needs to get a better laptop.
Maybe. I don't know. Because, think about if you were writing straight for that long. Yeah. And I don't know if that's literal. You could replace
the keyboard, but that is kind of a pain in the butt, I guess.
Yeah. And so in that process of like his writing style, he was like, and then it's not like I don't do other stuff too. I'll turn on a movie or an audiobook or whatever, or take breaks and do this and that. And he's like, and I just put something on that I'm familiar with. He was like Lord of the Rings, and we're typing along, and ooh, Mines of Moria. Okay, and now I'm back to it. And he's like, yeah. And then I realized later that, oh yeah, no, that definitely influenced this part of the book.
Yeah, that's cool though. It's like, there's a difference between, like being inspired by either, whether, subconsciously or subconsciously, or, letting it influence your, your work. The difference between that, obviously, and just like straight up just like ripping it off. Right. And trying to pass that off as your own work. And
sometimes you can rip stuff off and be upfront about it and people don't realize it. The show, oh man, I haven't watched any of it. Kerry Washington is the lead. It was on a few years ago. Revenge?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay. Yep.
That is based on The Count of Monte Cristo.
Oh, okay.
After I heard that, I was like, maybe I should go back and watch that. I haven't yet. It's on my list, but it's farther down.
Is that by Dumbass?
Yeah, Alexander.
We file that under
Dumas.
no disrespect, Alexander.
No disrespect. Absolutely.
As always, Josh, we can talk for hours and in many different directions. Open, eclectic.
Yes,
That's what
very,
we are.
very, very.
I think one more note that I had on the show. I thought I wrote down Snow Troll is cool.
Yes, and that's an
the
example.
Attack was also really cool. What he did.
Yeah.
Like they're just like, one or two of them get like attacked in a different area, and then the rest of them are like, "Oh my god, what's happening? What's coming?" And they look down that corridor, and it's all dark, and then suddenly just some giant ass piece of ice
goes
flying and like knocks out like 3 or 4 more of them.
I like that the Snow Troll wasn't just like a mindless brute. Like it was an intelligent, maybe mindless brute. I don't know, but there was some strategy to it, and it attacked carefully, and I liked that the animals, so to speak, are smart.
Did it remind you of the
Wampa
cave
in Star Wars?
troll?
No. Guess it didn't.
No. Wampa. Okay.
Yeah, I definitely thought of like.
That's the snow
on Hoth
creature, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I definitely got some Star Wars vibes from that.
I kind of got Elder Scrolls, like Skyrim. I mean, the video game.
Yeah.
But I mean, they have trolls. There's like I think they call it a snow troll. In Skyrim, that's like that you encounter, and it's like fairly early. You can encounter it, and it pretty much just, well, at least for me, I don't know. Maybe that just means I'm a bad gamer. You get wrecked by this thing. Like,
sure,
you're trying to like go over like a mountain pass, right? You're trying to get over the other side, and there's this you keep encountering this troll, and you just can't kill the thing. Anyway, not as successful as Galadriel and her crew.
They did suffer losses in that.
Yeah, they did.
In that battle, though.
Oh, and there's some really cool stuff in that cave scene. Like I thought when they were kind of exploring when they first came in, and she hears the wind like whistling, and she's like, it's all ice, right? Mm-hmm. She's like, there was a door here, but like she doesn't say anything. She just like punches through it.
Yeah,
and then she's like, there was a door here. Take it down. Yeah, that was cool. And then like the mark. Is that in the book? The mark. There is a mark, right?
There is a mark.
This isn't just something that they.
No, and I don't know. I don't remember it being so key.
But I mean, that works better for the show. Right?
Absolutely. I thought that was cool. A cool explanation. Like,
yeah. But like, dripping the water on that table, and it's all like.
Hissing around,
and she's like, the magic is here, the power is still here. They were here, the creatures, that they're tracking. Whatever. Yeah, that was cool.
So one of my favorite throwaway lines in the show is when the stranger is like whispering to the fireflies and then like releasing them or whatever. Definitely gave me like the Gandalf vibes. So maybe it is Gandalf
when he's talking to the little moth, right?
Yeah, maybe it is Gandalf, and that's where he learns his love of like the halflings, and then he'll run into Saruman later, who's maybe already fully developed, and he'll be like, let me teach you, my friend.
Right? No, yeah. I think I had that.
I think
I'm not just saying this. Like that did remind me of Gandalf when he's on top of Orthanc, right?
Yeah, he catches the moth.
And is like.
So I loved how he does. He like whispers to it and like releases them, and the girl, one of the Harfoot girls, is like, "What do you think he said?" And she's like, "I don't know. I don't speak Firefly." And I was like, "Yeah, I like that."
I like the Harfoots. Those, I mean the one who you get the feeling is going to be like the main character.
Poppy, is that her name?
I think so. Yeah, I like her. She's really cool.
Yeah, Poppy. Oh, interesting. I may have just gotten myself spoiled on.
Uh-oh.
Nope, I didn't. I lied.
Okay,
good. I thought that her thing was going to say Poppy Proudfoot. And I was like, but no. It's Poppy Proudfellow.
Oh, I can. Yeah. Okay, but you can see how that could turn into.
Sure. I mean, there's a lot of they're laying a lot of potential groundwork, I think.
So
no, Nori's the main one.
Nori. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's right. Is Poppy her friend?
Poppy's her friend.
Are they
Nori
just friends? They're not
Brandyfoot.
related, right?
It's Nori Brandyfoot and Poppy, whatever I said.
Proud
fellow. Proud fellow.
Proud feet.
Exactly.
So are we gonna see?
Sorry.
It's okay. I'm playing footsie under the table. Accidentally. Are we gonna see? Well, gosh, no. It would be way so far ahead. But I'm thinking Gollum. But I mean, he was just a.
I don't think so.
I mean, he's old. The ring gave him
long
life.
True.
But not that long.
Right? I don't think that long. I'd be
because
surprised.
It was after he was alive. I get we're getting into like
I feel
stuff
like
which I have no business discussing, but like because the One Ring is he finds it.
So okay. So Elrond makes a comment in the movie. You know, I was there like 900 years ago.
Okay,
right.
That's the
when they had
Saruman
big battle.
No, Sauron. Sorry.
Yeah, when they had like that big battle, kind of for Middle Earth, and one of the humans picked up the One Ring.
Isildur. Right.
Yeah.
Isildur. Yeah, Isildur. That's it.
So I never got the impression that Gollum was alive for that long. But I think we know that he did get the ring from Isildur, right? Like Isildur falls.
Well, no.
Loses it in the water, and then Gollum picks it up later. Like, but it's years later.
It's in a lake. Like it's because Isildur is in like going by like a river, right? And he's shot. Or he jumps in the water and then he's shot by the like the ring betrayed him, and so he becomes visible and gets shot. Whatever.
Yeah.
Because Smeagol is fishing with his cousin or his brother or
friend,
whatever,
cousin.
So, but it's like it also
point.
talks about how the ring like is hidden for a long, like it just lays there for a long time.
True. Right? So maybe there's a wide gap there of like. We see this gap on your resume, Ring.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
What were you doing? I was working on myself. I was self-improvement. Yeah.
Well, I was very shiny when I was found
again.
Yeah. Being in the water.
I don't think we're going to see Gollum or Smeagol. I don't have high confidence that that'll happen.
I agree.
I mean, unless the show goes on for a long time. But I don't know. I don't want it to go on for like a Grey's Anatomy.
No. I think they should. I think the writers should make a plan and be like, okay.
But it's like...
See how the first season was received.
Yeah.
Based on that, we think we can get this longevity out of it. Let's have a cutoff date here, and let's work up towards what we know is our end goal here. I think that would make the show a cut above a lot of other stuff.
Like having having a specific like time frame. Like we want to accomplish this, and then we're going to end it.
Tight, cohesive storytelling.
And not just be like, man, the fans and the money, gosh, just keep going. Are you worried at all that they're going to try to turn, depending on the success of the show, that they're going to try to turn this into like a franchise, like a Star Wars or a Star Wars expanded or extended universe and or a Marvel thing, like
Lord of the Rings is kind of already a franchise, though, isn't it?
Well, but I mean, are we going to get like multiple TV shows and multiple like new movies and like new whatever?
It's hard to say
out of this if the show is a huge success.
My guess is that that's like a back pocket thing. Like, ooh, let's keep that idea and let's see.
Would
how
that
it
bother
goes.
you if they did do that?
A little.
It would feel like they're kind of cheapening the whole thing.
That's kind of what makes Lord of the Rings great in some ways. And don't get me wrong, like I'm a Star Wars fan. I'm watching the new Andor show. Yeah. I've watched the Mandalorian, Book of Boba Fett.
But it feels different though.
It's
like the origins of it, right? I mean, you get Lord of the Rings, and that came out of like these writings of a celebrated author, you know. I mean, not to like diminish, I guess I kind of am, but like, I don't want to diminish, like Star Wars, but it's like it's slightly different, right?
Not everything needs like a ridiculously long detailed explanation. Not everything does. Some things are better. Like, you don't need to know, like the woman at the beginning, not Galadriel, who's kind of making flirty eyes towards Arondir, the ranger elf.
Oh yeah,
Bronwyn,
his lady friend,
right? Like, I don't need to know, like, how did she come to that town? How long has she been like into alchemy or apothecary or whatever? And where did she learn that? How did she learn that? Where did that come from? Like, where did that apron come from? Oh, did you see that nail third on the right, second hand down? Like, where did that come from? I don't care. I don't need to know.
You're right.
It doesn't make any difference.
We don't need to know all that.
You can have characters that are fully developed that just start on day one and move forward from there.
Yeah, like, we can appreciate them for where they are. We get some details, a few details from them, but we don't need to know every detail, and we don't need to have a prequel show for everything. And
if it becomes relevant later, like maybe like a handful of her nails were made from like a falling star, and that's the ore that they needed to make these rings of power. Okay, cool. Now that nail has a story and is integral to the rings of power.
Now, you mentioned nails. Are you just making that up?
Yeah.
Okay. I want to make sure, because
no, that's totally.
Make sure I wasn't like, you've watched a little bit further in the show and they're like, oh my God, there's these nails. Like, no. Okay.
No, if that happens, I'll be as shocked as you.
Then they'll be like, they come knocking on your door and be like,
how did you know about the nails? How'd you know about the nails? Yeah, where'd you get these nails?
Have you ever been
forged in the fires of Mount Doom?
Yeah. Okay.
Any final thoughts on Rings of Power?
Final thoughts.
First couple episodes at this point.
I'm excited to watch more. Did you like the we didn't get a lot of like combat, which I kind of was like kind of itching for.
Yeah.
But we got a little bit of a taste of it with like that orc that comes crawling out of the floorboard, and then what's his name? The ranger.
Yeah.
It's like abducted.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like that's like a horror-ish like vibe, and I like it. And then the kid who found the sword.
Yeah, I'm curious about that.
And like the blood.
I have some ideas.
That was like
flowing upward.
He's cut, right? His hand or his arm?
Yeah, he'd sustained an injury in his skirmish, and
so you're like, he's tainted. Something's gonna happen.
Yeah,
right?
Or maybe it's the fuel that the sword needs to.
Yeah,
I don't know what. Maybe the sword gets remade into the ring. I don't know. I really don't know. I'm guessing
nails.
Yeah,
but I thought like that whole orc that was cool, and like I've seen online that the show has been getting praise for like the practical effects, like, or the the practical makeup for the orcs and stuff. It's not all like
it looks great
CGI. It's real, and that's one of the really awesome things about the movies, right?
Yeah,
is that the orcs were just
it's
practical makeup, and you're like, man, they were like really cool. I mean, they're evil, but they're
really
cool.
Gross, but yeah, cool.
Yeah, gross and evil, but they're cool. Are there orcs in The Hobbit?
I think goblins are referenced.
Goblins.
I think orcs are referenced, but I don't think it's
because that was like a knock on, and I know that we asked for final thoughts, and now here we are, just barreling into something. Like that was another like knock on the Hobbit movies, that it was more like CGI intense as opposed to like a mix of practical and CGI. But I mean, there's a whole like kind of like documentary that kind of shows like how like kind of like painful making of the Hobbit movies was for Peter Jackson, and how like draining it was on him. So it was a different experience.
Yeah, it was. And that's okay.
So, I need to finish those two. You mentioned earlier that you'd seen the first two. I've seen the first one. I watched it. I watched it in the theater when it came out. Obviously, when it came out. because otherwise it wouldn't be in the theater.
I'd have to refresh on the first. I'd have to do a rewind and watch all of them at this point because I don't.
Right.
Yeah, that's what's holding me back the most at this point.
But I mean, we couldn't you can't watch the Hobbit movies until we finish the Rings of Power, because then you got to watch Rings of Power first, and then you can watch the Hobbit, and then you got to watch Lord of the Rings.
That's fair. I'm gonna go with that.
And then you watch Lethal Weapon.
And then you watch Lethal Weapon.
I really should finish the Hobbit or watch the Hobbit films, all of them.
Yeah.
But as far as final thoughts on the show, no, I think I don't really have anything else to say other than I'm excited to see where it goes.
Cautiously optimistic.
Yes, me too.
Which is a big leap up from I don't want to watch this.
From meh,
How about no?
Yeah.
Cautiously optimistic? That's a huge leap for me.
So, okay, here's a thought. What if after this we do House of the Dragon?
No.
Josh.
No.
Listeners, Josh hard stopped Game of Thrones at a certain point. I watched many years later after the show was done. I just went through the whole thing and watched it. Josh, when did you stop? You stopped season
3, maybe.
Okay. Josh has refused thus far to even entertain the idea of watching House of the Dragon. We should change his mind.
Listen, if we get 100 Ko-Fis.
Now, is this $100 or 100 donations?
100 donations. And each Ko-Fi is $3 to $5?
Yeah.
Something like that.
$5. Yeah.
If we got 100 Ko-Fis in the next 2 weeks after this episode comes out, then I'll take that as a sign that we need to do House of the Dragon. I don't know if we have that many listeners. I just, it would take a lot for me to motivate me to do that.
Sure. I mean, and that's fine. I mean, and I respect that.
You can tell me about it on another episode if you want.
Yeah.
I'll listen. That's
fine. I and myself, I'm gonna watch it at some point. Could be years from now because it took me years to watch Game of Thrones. And I'm doing the Rings of Power right now, and I'm very busy with my hobby of playing video games, obviously.
Yeah.
But yeah, I have heard that House of the Dragon is good. So, I'd be it's kind of a cool time, having the Rings of Power and that coming out. So it's it feels like we got some good TV.
Yeah. So
anyway, we're cautiously optimistic. Rings of Power. I'm looking forward to watching that. So we've decided it has been spoken. Is that the Mandalorian thing?
I have spoken.
I have spoken. We're going to dedicate at least a few episodes of this season to Rings of Power. So
that works for me.
Look forward to it. Now, in watching this show, I'm thinking, maybe what if I actually sit down and watch or read the Silmarillion? What if I do that?
What if you do? I
don't think it's
great.
If I was a betting man, I would not.
I would also probably not bet.
I would not bet that would happen.
I could see you reading chunks of it. I just don't know if I could see you reading the whole thing.
Now, maybe if I had gotten into Lord of the Rings or The Hobbit when I was younger, when I was in late elementary school or middle school, when I didn't have as many responsibilities, distractions, as much technology. Because believe it or not, I used to read a lot when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Maybe I would have read it then. I don't know.
Maybe.
But there's still time.
True.
So we'll see. But anyway, I think that's it for this episode. So thank you everyone for sticking with us and being patient as we're on a bit of our hiatus. We're excited. We're here for season 2, and we're excited to see what transpires. So, with that said, we'll
what he said. I agree.
So everybody, make sure you check the air pressure in your car tires occasionally. Sometimes, especially with the changing of the seasons, you might notice that you get that low pressure light, and make sure you floss occasionally. I don't know where I'm going.
I don't know where you're going with this either.
I'm trying to wrap it up. I don't know. Anyway, so thanks for listening, and we will see you next time. Farewell.
Thank you so much for listening. You can find The Open Eclectic on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and MySpace. Want us to ramble on about something specific or have a comment on what you just heard? Send us an email at theopeneclectic@gmail.com. We now have a Ko-Fi if you feel like supporting the show. That's ko-fi.com/theopeneclectic. Or support the show by leaving us a review. Thanks. We hope you'll join us again next time on The Open Eclectic.
Like me, I have hobbies. Like I play on my Xbox. I mean, I do. But
That's a hobby.
Is that a hobby?
That's a hobby. I think gaming is a hobby now.
Well, okay. Let me back up. I'm not denigrating gaming because I'm a fairly avid gamer. But I feel like. And I mean, again, there's nothing wrong with spending time playing games. I spend lots of time playing games, but I guess I don't see hobbies like, I don't know what I'm saying. It's not coming out well. I feel like your hobbies, like toy photography, the things like ventures you do, like the bookbinding stuff, and just I feel like those are more like productive hobbies, I guess, because for one, you're producing or making something, like something tangible. You're making art. Or you're making something, useful, like a
notebook or something.
Notebook. Or, making like t-shirt designs or something like that. But
I don't think all hobbies have to be.
I mean, they don't. No, you're right. They
producing, because like reading books, I think is a valid hobby.
But you're like, I guess you could put video games in. See, this is not coming across well. I sound like a real like jack off, like saying stuff like this. But anyway, but I feel like. Maybe what I'm trying to say is like, it's more when you said you didn't have time for another hobby, like the hobbies that you have are not necessarily ones that are just like, that you can just like pick up for a minute or like, sit down and I'm going to fire up my toy photography machine for 15 minutes. I'm going to sit down and play a match of Call of Duty on my Xbox and then I'm going to do something else. Like,
sure.
I feel like it's more intensive, I guess.
That's true, actually.
That's kind of what I'm driving at. So when you said you didn't have time for another hobby, you're actually right. Now, if I were to say like I don't have time for another hobby, that's total BS because I have plenty of time.
We all make choices. A lot of choices about like how you spend your time and what you do, and we're parents too.
Yep.
And that's I don't want to treat that like a hobby because that kind of trivializes parenthood just a little bit. But at the same time, like for us, that was something we thought about before we had Martin. Like we talked about like time and what kind of commitment that is, how that changes your life, and things that you give up, so to speak, for your kids. And that you're happy to. Like, you don't think of it as like a sacrifice for most, hopefully for a lot of it. It's just what you do. But, like today I went to Vala's. Mm-hmm. And, I took off. That was time off that I took from work. And then I could have gone back to the office after, like I could have dropped the kids off at home and then I'd gone back and worked for 2 hours or whatever and probably been very productive. Sure. But I didn't.
Done that, but
I chose to stay home and spend time, with family, and so it's just it's that time thing. That's why we always record it, after 8:30 at night, or when we go to a movie, it's like after kids' bedtime most of the time, or in game night, it's late because it's those, So it's like I could squeeze in more if I really wanted to. You could, we all probably could.
Yeah,
There's like a maximum threshold too, and
I mean some people thrive on that, like getting as much out of all the time they have, like filling up every possible hour that they can, and very but you don't have to do that.
No, you don't have to.
It's like there's no, you don't have to. There's no reason for it, but at the same time, especially with with kids, you got to be, and I mean just as being an adult, you have more commitments, so you got to be more deliberate in the way that you spend what time you do have. So,
and that's
people do what they think what they want, and that's cool, man.
Yeah,
it's cool, bro. It's bro.
That's one of those things where like I do feel a little bad because like you've lent me a couple of games, and then I got a game for my birthday. I did play at Fire Ninja Turtles the other day. It was in the exact glory as I remember playing it on like NES and in the arcade. But I just replay games that are like my favorites because I don't want to spend the time getting too invested in something else because it's easier for me to turn it off when I need to.
No, and that makes sense, and that fits with like we said with your other hobbies, because like you just said, it's like it's easier for you to turn it off because it's your favorite and you play it and you're like, well, but I have already played it, so it's like I
skip all the cutscenes. I play it to play the game,
right?
And
yeah, and that totally makes sense.
Yeah.
Get it, man.
Yeah,
you gotta make choices.
Speaking of time, you ready?
Should we say anything about like? Should we make it different? Like, I don't know about different. I mean, yeah. No, like be like, wow, season. I mean, we always wing it. I guess it doesn't. Really
let's do let's address it. I think.
Yeah, I think we can, but I don't think we have to like plan it out. Maybe just like very roughly, so we can like. Address that it's the beginning of. We decided to say this was the beginning of season 2, and then we just work our way into episode 1 of the Rings of Power.
Yeah,
and I guess then after that,
or more than one episode,
sure.
Depends on how far we got.
Yeah, that's cool. All right, let's do it.
Cool.
Let's do it. Are we recording now?
Yeah, it's live. Oh
my god, are we streaming? Hi, America, world.
By the way, you see that little dot right there?
Well, do you want to start it off, or would you like?